Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are live in Las Vegas for the second half of the FBA Draft. My name is Marcus Baylor, and to my right is Ryan Eastman. How you doing, my dude?
Doing excellent. The voice has held out through the night. I had not required any sort of replacement. We'll see if it holds out after another 2 hour draft. I might need a nice hot cup of tea with honey in it at this rate.
I mean, I can't blame you after what seems to be surprisingly a little bit of a quiet one last night when it came to round one. No crazy shenanigans going on between the GMs. But that is all in the past. We have our first 24 players picked. We're now getting ready to go for the second half as we get started with San Jose.
That we will, but first, the commissioner will take the stage once again and give his address for the uh, festivities about to begin.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the second day of the 2019 FBA Draft. Just a reminder to all the teams that you only have 3 minutes to make your selections today, a little bit quicker than yesterday, and hopefully we'll all be able to go home in time or stay afterwards and enjoy the buffet after the festivities today. So I guess there's not really much ceremony to go through tonight. So why don't we go ahead and get started with the San Jose Thrust? I'll return shortly after they've made their selection. Thank you.
And with that, the second round begins. I think we're going to bring on our local San Jose correspondent, Andy Peltz. Andy, how you doing tonight?
Hey, I think someone needs to put on another pot of coffee for me.
I'm sure you were kept
Man.
quite busy last night. We definitely picked your brain about San Jose at 16. They took finally Falcam off the board.
Yes.
I think that's going to be her nickname now, as it's finally Falcam. Now, here at 25, what do you think San Jose is going to do, especially since last night's signing of Leon Delmont seems to have opened the floodgates for the competition for Sarah?
Oh yeah, Alessandra Serra is now one of the hot picks for the free agency. So San Jose has probably got a lot on their mind right now. So given that fact, who are if they've got to have a backup plan. So taking a look at their roster, make sure they've got some backups, and hey, they might have to go with either a forward or a guard here with this pick. We still have some top 24 on the board. We've got Slater, Caramo, and Cloverfield. Depends on what they're looking for in a guard if they go for that. Um, Otherwise, yeah, if they're gonna go with Sarah, they're gonna have to be willing to pony up a lot of cash.
That they will, and I mean, obviously, you mentioned the two top 24 point guards still on the board, Slater and Cloverfield. Slater, one of the three draftees coming in this class that went through the D League, and then Cloverfield, obviously from Underwood, historical school. But I don't know if either of them really scream starting point guard to me. And I think if San Jose decides to take one of them here, it really is just saying, hey, we need a backup just in case Sarah goes. But at the same time, picking them here, it won't be the end of the world. I mean, it won't really hurt their ego so much if they see a point guard getting selected in the second round.
Right.
Yeah, honestly, oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I really feel like the best opportunity for them to get is Connie Cloverfield because, as you said, this is around the time where you're like, all right, this we're not expecting a lot of starter caliber players around in this. This is the second round, but I will say they do need to have someone with quality passing ability, and I think that considering that their most of their bench is a little bit cleared, this off season, it would be good to probably try and fill those up in case they do get Sarah, so that way they'll have a quality depth in that area.
Yeah, I mean, do you maybe consider them going for another center here, just as a backup? Because the fact they already drafted one and they already know they're going to be losing Jazz next season.
Honestly, I wouldn't put them against it if they decide to do that because also they have to worry about Duitazed Gakar as well. Whether or not he'll be able to return this year is a question on its own right. But I will say that if they do decide to go that route, that there are only there's only really a couple of players that are kind of be like, all right, we expect them to be around in this area, and they're both on the cusp, which is not a bad thing in this point in turn. But I would say that considering that they do have quite a bit of guards here to pick from, I wouldn't be surprised if they could decide to go that route and make sure they get one of the better bigs at this point.
Right. And just from the from talking with some of the staff on San Jose, they're definitely looking to keep some of their big name players. So they're not going with they're not desperate yet, but
Yet. Well,
they'll still have to look at their keep their options open.
I think I see Hugo heading to the stage now, actually, with the pick.
For the number 25 pick of the 2019 FBA Draft, the San Jose Thrust have selected Cypress Caldwell, a point guard American Martin from Sacramento Valley State University. Congratulations to you, Cypress, on being the number 25 pick of the 2019 FBA Draft. I will return once the Arizona Whips have confirmed their selection. Thank you.
So we weren't wrong in terms of them deciding to go guard, just they decided to go with a somewhat local character from Sacramento.
Yeah, I can't really blame the here at this point because, as I said, like having a quality backup passer is probably pretty much needed for this team. As I said, with the fact that a lot of their role players coming off the bench are heading into free agency, and I don't think there really are a lot of players worth keeping when it comes to the passing side because, of course, Blicknock getting pretty, isn't getting any younger. Joseph Golton, I believe he's not as as much of a veteran as other players, but he is still getting up there. So I think really only guard that was a part of that depth that you could say is worth probably bringing back is Jonas McMillan. So I wasn't surprised about they decided to go over here for this pick.
Yeah. And let's be honest, the top 24 ranking is subjective. So the Thrust probably saw something in Caldwell that they liked over the other options that are still on the board.
Yeah, and with that, we'll move on to the Arizona Whips, a team I know, Marcus, you were saying last night you were mighty impressed with their selections. They didn't seem to have any missteps in your mind. This will be their, oh my gosh, I believe third pick, and they have two more still to come. What do they do here, considering last night they took a duo of guards?
I think for this one, I believe that it's probably good to focus on more so the forward depth as a possibility. Because, as I said, they actually have a pretty good young core going, especially if they do decide to bring JC Gold back as well. So possibly maybe looking for maybe getting a young power forward here to probably help develop as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if I see Michael Ikezi here.
Mm-hmm. And I would definitely say that even seeing that top 24 Karamo come off the board, or like you said, reaching into that on the cusp with Tara Evans and Michael Ikezi. And I mean, honestly, we're going to be talking about Arizona a lot tonight, and I think I see the commissioner already heading up to the stage. It looks like they've made their pick.
For the 26th pick of the 2019 FBA Draft, the Arizona Whips have selected Neil Caramo, a small forward shooting guard, American Black Bear from Pred Tech of North California. Congratulations to you, Niall, on being the number 26 pick of the 2019 FBA Draft. I will return shortly after the Huntsville Mayors have confirmed their selection. Thank you.
Well, they did go with a swing for yes, but does primarily play small forward. So, along the lines you were thinking, Marcus.
Yeah, but I would say that it's a little bit of a concern here for this one. I'm not entirely in love with the pick per se. While granted, yes, it is a top 24 player, and it's a and you can't really go wrong with going for a top 24 player that around at this juncture. But I will say that he's not really necessarily much of a scorer, more so of a passer, from what I've seen from his scouting report. But I will say that if they really do believe that they can develop him into being a more well-rounded player, I can definitely see the potential here.
Yeah, well, we'll get to talk about them after four more picks. But let's jump over to Huntsville Mayor's Andy. What are you thinking here tonight?
Yes.
They've picked a very flashy shooting guard in Lauren Fash last night, number 3. What do they do at this point?
All right. Well, they've got their point guard, as you said. Uh, they might want to diversify, as they say in stocks and investments. Your best bet is diversifying. So, with that being said, they might pull from the on the cusp players, going with say Michael Akezi. Uh, then again, they might want to strengthen their guards and go with something else that's on the board. I'm gonna stick with a Kezi for this one.
Yeah, I think last night they obviously had to go with the shooting guard. I think it's become clear that they might be moving on from D'Angelo McCulkin, but they have the next problem of, okay, do we start looking to replace Wendy Brown, or are we starting to consider replacing uh, Amina Farhadovich, because she's getting up there in age. I think she just turned 36 or 37. So how many more seasons, even though she started her career late, can she really put in the FBA before her body starts to uh, catch up with her? And then Wendy, I think, is just about to turn 30 as well. You have two very veteran players that maybe only have 4 or 5 years left in the league. So do you go ahead and start looking at replacing them now and cultivating a player? Or do you put it off to a little bit later when you think you have the right player available to you?
Well, they can't really be able to replace Brown as of right now, considering how heavy her contract is at this current moment, with being around the 16, 17 margin for the next few years.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say that I will agree that they will look for someone into the future when it comes to the starting role. I think we're going to be looking at more so the center position. And so I think they may go Turnbull here. Jacqueline Turnbull, she could be a really good player, is on the cusp, and can be a really solid pick for them as they continue to try to get younger as much as they can. Because that's been the one knock that we really have for Huntsville for these past couple of years, is that they really haven't been able to find a way to get younger. Now, with the fact that they do have Dylan Redfield, who is a very
29.
seasoned player, but he's still younger, and also with their pick third last year with Lauren Fash, I think that this is a good chance for them to really kind of set up a young core for the future as well as getting into the now.
Well, we're about to see as the commissioner is taking the stage.
For the number 27 pick of the 2019 FBA Draft, the Huntsville Mayors have selected Jacqueline Turnbull, a center spotted hyena from Winchester. congratulations to you, Jacqueline, on being the number 27 pick of the 2019 FBA Draft. I will return after the Las Vegas Wildcards have confirmed their selection. Thank you.
Well, they did go center and a big girl at that 7'6", possibly a perfect replacement for Amina in the coming years. I don't know if you guys have anything to add about her before we move on to the home crowd Vegas Wildcards.
Nothing really, because as I said before, this is something that I think that they really do that they did need to consider. Right now, you can't replace Wendy Brown because of that contract. I don't know if there's anybody that's willing to take it unless they give like a huge turnout to them. So I think really the best bet for them at this point was to go for that center position and really look towards the future.
And I'll concur with that. Nothing else to add to that.
Well, then let's talk about our host team. The Las Vegas Wildcards selected uh, Zari Tipton last night and Ivy Robbins, going both on the post side of the ball with a forward selection and a forward center selection. What does that tell us about what they're going to do here at 28?
Well, let's not forget that they also had Xavier Cross, because this team has had
Oh,
three
that's right.
picks. This is their fourth pick now.
It's
So,
very easy to lose track when you're looking at a giant board and you just keep seeing trade, trade, trade.
hey, if it just goes to show the house always wins.
Yes. Well, we talked about definitely I don't want to say the speculation of that reach on Cross last night, but looking at it now, it looks like they built a player for almost every position except point guard. Does that mean that we should expect them to grab a top 24 point guard here?
It could be the possibility, as we said before. With this team, their starting lineup is pretty much set. Now they have a couple of things covered with Lisa DuPont, Misha Maxwell, Winka practice for at least one more year, and they already have their replacement in Framers Wiley as well. I wouldn't be surprised if they decide, you know what, I think this is a good time for us to really like stack up on the quality of our depth and really go for the best available at this juncture. So Violet Slater could be a player that could be looked at this moment. I mean, she isn't much of a passer, but she could definitely light up the scoreboard when she gets a chance. So being that spark off the bench could be a vital piece for them.
And on they might do that also for the reason of they might be looking at other teams, take something that another team would like, someone who another team would like, so that they could use that as some leverage to say perhaps get some other talent from some other teams in a trade, or whatever you may have.
Yeah, and I think another kind of fun fact we have looked at but not really touched on much is we still have quite a few sibling pairs on the board that have not been picked yet. Do we see maybe some of these teams that have multiple second round picks consider grabbing them? I know LVG does not have a second pick, but I could very easily imagine them getting a hold of another one. I think the only team left that has multiple picks is Arizona, as they had two more in this draft round.
Right.
Also Texas as well. In the
Oh, I
second
do
round.
see that now. That they're from Lorraine, and then the 30th pick.
Yeah, so there's some potential that we could get some sibling pairs. I've been subtly looking at the Dumphy sisters just because they're so entertaining to watch on Twitter.
Well, and then obviously you have the King siblings. Obviously, Evan Cross was selected by Arizona earlier, so already got half the pair there. All they need is Liana
Well,
Cross,
Xavier got picked.
but he's not a
He was
sibling.
oh, okay, never mind.
Just because last time, I think the Maine Wolf would have some issue with being compared to the other Cross siblings.
So, yeah. I that's my mistake because I'm just looking at names. I'm not looking at species. I'm
Yeah.
species blind.
Okay. But no, I think we could see. I want to definitely talk about that when we get to Arizona again, but we'll see. But I do believe I see the commissioner heading to the stage.
For the 28th pick of the 2019 FBA Draft, the Las Vegas Wildcards have selected Issa Dunphy, guard forward Yellow Mongoose from Winchester University. Congratulations to Lisa on being the number 28 pick of the 2019 FBA Draft. I will return once the Queen's Pride have confirmed with me their selection. Thank you.
Well, well, well. The first Dunphy sister off the board.
Right, and it makes me wonder if we're gonna see Lauren go to a different team, either like in within the division or way across the country. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna, as we're getting through these picks, I guess, start realizing in terms of uh, immediate impact. A lot of these players may not see starting time, and now this is really the point where teams are building depth. I can definitely see why they went with a guard here. They have very young guard in Lisa Dupont, and now they have Lisa Dunphy, but she could provide backup to Misha Maxwell and Lisa when necessary. You know, she is a guard forward, so maybe try and develop that uh, chemistry for the rotation when they have all three on the floor. But
Yeah,
let's jump over to the Queen's Pride. Oh, the
Queen's Pride.
Queens. They selected Luther Kierkegaard last night at fifth overall. What do you see them taking here? Do you think they'll maybe try and find a successor for Zoe Wilds with a Connie Cloverfield or a Violet Slater?
I think that's a pretty. I think more so Connie than Violet because Connie is the better passer out of the two that are left. I think that at this juncture they need to be able to find a way to solidify that position for the future, and I think Connie is the best way to go, even if it is in the second round. And she's still a top 24, albeit the number 24th of the 24. Uh, it's it's essentially one of those like, all right, we have to find a way to get the best available and what advantage we can take up with this. You already have Aurora Goldscheid and Micah Davenport, pretty much your top two scorers on the perimeter from last year, still coming in for at least one more year. I would not. I think that the best bet is to go for Connie Cloverfield.
Yeah, it's they right now they've got quite if I'm reading here correctly, because we're only getting so much time on these ones now. They've got their big furs pretty well set, but going with a guard would be a pretty safe bet on this one.
Well, you talked about the best passer in Connie, but I think also the Queens have liked to have that score first mentality point guard going back all the way to the Queen era. And then you follow that up with the Zoe Wilds, who's very similar. You know, she can pass, yes, but she definitely was known for her scoring ability. Do you think maybe they try and cultivate that again with a Violet Slater, or go deep into the on the cusp? Even we have to keep account of Corinzo and Caliber still there as well.
Yeah, I think it's really kind of one of those things because, as we've stated before, we are in the early in the second round. Well, we can still find value here. The value does dip a little bit, and the worry is just like you have to really be careful on who you choose, especially if you're trying to look for a starter at this point. And for me, I feel like the safest bet is to be like, all right, can we will we able to find that floor general? We can develop a score. She could possibly be that next queen for this team. But I think right now the biggest worry is to be like, who will you find to be that main passer?
And it looks like the commissioner is heading to the stage right now.
For the number 29 pick of the 2019 FBA Draft, the Queen's Pride have selected Tepisa Ava Ala Akiak Tik Ta Alakak, a power forward polar bear from Ursa State University. Congratulations to Tepisa on being the number 29 pick of the 2019 FBA Draft. They'll return for the next pick when the Texas Lone Stars have confirmed their selection. Thank you.
Well, Marcus, I would love to hear your thoughts on that player and hear your lovely take on how to pronounce her name.
Well, I'm just gonna stick with Tapisa because I am not gonna get everything else. But I feel like that we have. I feel like they actually did find a gem here because she is a very physical player and she can score very well on the post and in the and a little bit mid range as well. So I feel like that this could be a definite steal here. You could say for this. I think she had the potential of being an on the cusp player too. Considering the scouting reports that we have seen. So I think that this was a pretty good pick. Definitely good for the depth for the Queens, especially with the fact that we know that Darian Baptiste is heading out at the door at this point.
Well,
Uh,
they're fighting for him supposedly in terms of value. It's just how much money can they really throw, especially after they just drafted a center.
yeah, it's just like it's pretty much essentially trying to make sure to keep that that cushion of the backup plan. So really being able to get that kind of depth, I could potentially see the Queens if they do bring Baptiste back to have one of the best front court depths this league has have seen so far.
Well, I think we've burned some time with the Queen's pick. I think it was definitely, like I said, a good selection in a needed area. But let's jump over to the team that's picking for the first time in this draft, the Texas Lone Stars.
All right. So Texas, I've heard around the horn is that they're going. They've got a lot of short-term contracts right now. A couple players who are in free agency, and they're going to look to keep some of those. With their first pick of of the entire draft, it's a little bit tough to say what exactly that they're going to go for, at least in my mind. Uh, you've got still got talent on the board. We've got a couple of guards from the 24. Akezi, I'm gonna go back to Akezi to put a name out there and say that they might go with that.
And that's a very good player to point to, especially after the news broke today that they were amnestying uh, Adi Nareas, no longer on the team. They definitely have that question now at center. I know that they have supposedly made an offer to Cassidy Whitelatch, but the question is he really a long-term solution in Texas, or do they need to consider drafting a potential successor? And Akizi is probably the best center left on the board by a decent margin. I mean, just looking at the board right now, I only see Damon, Salva, and that's it in terms of centers left. There's only 3 centers left on our draft board, people. Sorry, I take that back. Demi is a forward center, so 4 people that can play center are still on the draft board, and we have a long draft to go.
Oh yeah. Uh, Guards are definitely have been saturated in this entire thing thus far. So, if you need something big, you gotta get it now.
And if we see a center picked here, I could imagine maybe a small floodgate in terms of trades trying to come in for teams that are desperate for that depth. I mean, maybe not a lot of these players would expect starting time, but they would be expected to play significant minutes in a league that is always starved for center talent. But it is a big question. Time is running out. I think I see the commissioner heading to the stage right now, in fact. and he's making his way up there.
For the number 30 pick of the 2019 FBA Draft, Texas Lone Stars have selected Lucy Jo Heitkamp, a forward-jumping spider from Vanderbilt University. Congratulations to you, Lucy, on being the number 30 pick of the 2019 FBA Draft. The return for the next pick after the Arizona Whips have confirmed their selection. Thank you.
True, we're gonna have to get the commissioner I think one of those random scooters that you see all around downtown, because he is having to run all up and down the stage with his quicker picks. But they didn't go center, but they did go big in the end.
And a jumping spider at that. So is that saying something about... I don't mean to bring species into it, but I am bringing species into it.
Well, I mean, 6'10", 215, not going to win a battle of the post without technique. However, that does offer Lucy a lot of opportunity to elevate over the defense and be much more agile, sort of like a Jake Turner. But I don't hate this pick just because they did go big, and that's kind of the position they're needing. They don't have a lot of certainty down there in the post. I know that there's a couple players that they have been going after, but Lucy would be a good player to help fill out the team and possibly develop into a sort of player that can take over significant minutes over time.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those cases where this could be one of those. I wouldn't say draft and stash per se, but really kind of in a little bit of an experiment here, because as you said, for this player to really kind of contend with other bigs, they may have to bulk up a little bit as their career goes on. But she does have a lot of jumping ability. She is very well known for her rebounding too. But of course, in order to really stay in this league for a long term, especially with a significant minutes and as a role player, you're gonna have to do a little bit more than that. So it'll be interesting to see what we will see from her development wise.
Yeah, and we are going to jump over to the team that is on the clock. Arizona Whips find themselves once again back in this position with their now fourth selection in this draft, I believe.
Yeah, you'd be correct. So we got Karamo today, yesterday Evan Cross, as well as Tina Hazari, or Tino Rosari. I apologize. So here we go again. Where are we gonna go with this one?
I mean, you look at who they have on the team at least. The only player that's really locked down is Morgan McCarthy. I could see them maybe going for a big, or like you've been pointing out, hopefully haven't been cursing him, Akizi, having the ability to play power forward and center might be something that they're looking for, or maybe go with a player a little deeper into the not ranked, like Ciro Rosales, maybe a big like Troy Ronick. Like I said, so one of those players I think we might see coming off the board here, because they have already picked their guards. They got their guards. That's what they did. They don't need anything else, and then they just pick their kind of power forward guard. So I'd kind of feel like if they draft anyone else but a big, they're over depthing themselves.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that one. I personally would think that pretty much going for the best available big is the best way to go, especially with very few left on the board as of right now. So if I don't see a KZ come up on here, and albeit if they go for yet another god, I'd be pretty shocked.
Yep, and I think we're going to get to see that decision as the commissioner heads onto the stage.
For the number 31 pick of the 2019 FBA Draft, the Arizona Whips have selected Michael Akizi, a forward center giraffe from Metro Atlanta University. Congratulations to you, Michael, on being the number 31 pick for the FBA Draft. A return once the Seattle Summit have confirmed their selection. Thank you.
Well, Marcus, you nailed this one at least, even though I think we were both leaning that after how many guard players they've picked tonight, they kind of had to pick a center at some point.
Yeah, it's one of those essentials of being like, all right, they have to go big or honestly go home. No pun intended there. I think that it's definitely a solid choice at this point of the draft. You definitely get a player that is really more rebounding focused here. So he is still a project as it is, but I think this is a good chance for them to really get it time for development because Arizona has been on the rebuilding stage for very long time. I think it's really time to actually put the steps in the right direction. So Akizi, it makes sense. I have no problems with it.
Yeah, and we'll fly back to the your coast, Andy, here with Seattle on the clock.
All right, we gotta mention the Cougar in the room.
Well,
Seattle
I mean,
signed a huge, a long contract with Leon Delmont, and now they've got the rest of their roster to fill out. So here's what I'm gonna say real quick. Since Michael Akezi is off the board, I'm gonna say that they might even go into centers or just big furs in the non-ranked section. I'm just gonna throw it out there. Rosales. Well, I'm just throwing darts now.
well, don't forget their pick last night, eighth overall, was I don't want to say a reach. It was the first pull from deep into the top 24, Connor McQuaid, who was ranked 15th, going number 8 overall. So it looks like they have at least picked their forward going forward. And if they plan to bring DQ back while getting center depth might be a good idea. At the same time, like you said, they've put a lot of money towards Delmont. What do they do now about getting someone to complement him at the shooting guard position? Do they continue to pursue free agents, or maybe do they grab a rookie who will be a far cheaper option in that regard?
Uh, honestly, I think that going for the draft for the shooting guard position would be a pretty smart idea, more so as a safety net, because I do think that with all the money that they still have left, because they have nobody on the roster at this moment. I think really the safe bet is to probably go who do I have? James Caliber. James Caliber is an on the cuffs player, and he can shoot fairly well on this game. As a matter of fact, they could actually go Violet Slater too, because she's a top 24 player, top 24 ranked player, and that's some very good. That is a very really good. But it could be considered a steal
A
in
value
this
pick at
draft.
this point,
Yeah, a
considering.
great value pick.
Well, time has run out, and I see the commissioner heading to the stage with the envelope.
For the number 32 pick of the 2019 FBA Draft, the Seattle Summit have selected Violet Slater, a guard red vixen from Battle Line Sports College. Congratulations to you, Violet, on being the number 32nd pick of the 2019 FBA Draft. I will return once again after the Albany Alphas have confirmed their selection. Thank you.
So we definitely nailed it in terms of them going for a guard. Um, Maybe this indicates they're just, like you said, going for a backup plan. They did have a top 24 player fall into their lap at 32. That is a.
Yeah,
It's not a terrible fall, but it is a pretty decent one.
yeah. It's a pretty decent fall. I certainly believe that this is could be considered a steal of the draft. This is a player that is very known for their scoring, and even though and with the fact that we know that Leon Delmont is prefers to drive into the paint more so than do perimeter shooting, I think that's Slater would be a good complementary piece to really kind of extend, to spread the offense out a little bit, be able to give him that room to do that also. And just in case things do collapse, it's easy to feed her and be able to shoot the three.
Right. Yeah, it's a very smart move. A pretty good pretty good selection at this point. Although it's almost a no-brainer.
Well, Andy, I think we're going to have you for one more pick.
All right.
We're going to the out, and we'll definitely bring you back if we have time. But we're flying through this, only 40 minutes in. We're already past the 8th pick. But any thoughts so far on Albany, what they will do, or any thoughts in general of the pick so far tonight?
All right. Well, let's take a look at their contracts right now. They've got Cassius on for 3 more years. So they got that guard down. Viren Kivar is on for 3 years. Uh, so let that's a forward. So they might have to. They might be looking at. A center in Rosales. They might bolster their guard position, though. They still got Connie Cloverfield available as a top 24 player. So those are the two that are coming to mind for me.
I could definitely see a Connie Cloverfield. I do not have any information if they have made a bid to keep Tay Delgado, a player that really hasn't, I think, developed how they intended. I think he was put a lot on his shoulders very early in his career, so I don't know if they've decided that they're done with him and they need to pursue. Obviously, they were going after Leon Delmont with a massive contract. I don't know if they're going to change their plans after the signing last night, if that means that they will now look to the draft here. Connie would be a very interesting pick there, but maybe find themselves back in the same position where they're not getting a player at a level they need to compete early. But at the same time, I would lean towards the center position. As you said, Rosales is probably the best center left on the board in terms of being able to produce for the team. Maybe not immediately, but it would be a more impactful pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think at this point, a position of need is probably more important. And I think as of right now, the big position is the most important need as we get to see Miguel Mendoza heading into free agency. And outside of Mendoza, I don't really think there is, outside of Kivar, obviously, there is any other big furs that are notable on this team that can really make an impact.
And I think I see the commissioner heading to the stage now, in fact.
For the number 33 pick of the 2019 FBA Draft, the Albany Alphas have selected Jackie Lemon, a point guard links from Harvard University. Congratulations to you, Jackie, on being the 33rd pick of the 2019 FBA Draft. I'll return once the Tallahassee Typhoons have confirmed their selection. Thank you.
Well, 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 they went guard and not a guard we were anticipating.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's necessarily a bad pick per se. You do get a quality pass first point guard, which seems to be one of the things that would be needed if they decide to let go of Tay Delgado. But at the end of the day, I still feel like that if they really, really needed that passing, Connor Clover would probably be the better option here.
Yep, and we are gonna say goodbye to you, Andy. For now, we'll definitely bring you back, get you a chance to rest your voice, nurse some of that. I'm sure there's a pot of coffee going somewhere in the building that you can go nurse for a little while.
I'll make sure to whip some interns.
And thank you so much for joining us. And we're gonna bring on now another guest, Willie Walker from FSPN. Willie, you there?
I'm here. How are you?
Ooh, how you doing tonight? First time we got you on for this draft.
Yeah, well, geez, yesterday it was a pain to get here. Do you know how crowded Las Vegas is this weekend?
It's pretty crowded all the time, I feel like.
Oh yes, the strip is pretty hectic.
Well, Willie,
Well,
I wanted to get your opinion. We don't have a ton of time on the Tallahassee clock, but your thoughts on the draft so far? Any surprises? Anyone you feel like people are sleeping on that are still left on the board?
Well, obviously, we still have one top 24 pick left in Connie Cloverfield. I think she's a reliable guard that a lot of teams are sleeping on that needs to be considered. Quite a few deep dives below the pick ranges of some teams. I think that was intelligent in some cases. We have teams like the Wild Cards and the Whips who have multiple picks that they can kind of experiment with, like Texas, who I think could have gone with pick in the number 30 slot. They opted for Hype Camp. They saw something else that maybe uh, those who rate these players didn't see. So it's been overall a great draft. No crazy moves quite yet.
No, we have not seen any crazy moves, but I do think I see an elephant moving towards the stage right now.
For the number 34 pick of the FBA draft, the Tallahassee Typhoons have selected Tara Albins, a forward thylacine from Penn State Anthro University. Congratulations to you, Tara, on being the number 34 pick of the 2019 FBA draft. I will return once the Texas Lone Stars have confirmed their selection. Thank you.
Well, well, well. Looks like we have our backup for Travis Buckner coming off the board here. Another on the cusp player gone before Connie Cloverfield.
Yeah, the expectation I had for the Typhoons for this pick have to still fill in the shooting guard position. And what they did with this pick was they opted to go for the forward position. And for what it's worth, I think Tara Albins was somebody we've been talking about for several picks now as a viable option for a backup that can learn from players like Smoot, and if they decide to resign Fran Herod, totally somebody who can fill in that depth at the forward position.
Especially as the amount of forwards slip lower and lower on the board. I mean, all that we have left, they could play power forward or center. Is Demi Spidanak? Oh God, I can't say it. Spadanik and Troy Ronick. Those are the only, and then Damon Miele. Those are the three players. God, I keep finding them. Maybe they aren't disappearing. Ciro Rosales. That's four players still on the board that can play center or a power forward position, which is a team that I think a position a lot of teams have some need in, even if just for depth. Which we're going to switch on over to now. The Texas Lone Stars. You talked earlier about them picking Lucy. Uh, do you think now that they're going to go guard since they got the player earlier?
I think they have to go guard. I think there's only so many players that you could look into for center or forward positions from this draft. And so if you're looking for players at this point, we're at pick number 35, players that will have any kind of readyable impact, especially with Texas bringing in the new commissioner, having some shifting of the tides, I guess, in this case. Now's the time, again, pick up Cloverfield, or, we haven't talked about Ovind Holmgren a whole lot.
Oh,
It's somebody who played in the combine game.
I was about to say the player that did have an opportunity to stand out. Do you think maybe uh, it was a misfortune playing in the combine game that he may have actually hurt his odds more than helped, just because of the exposure that was put on him? And I don't recall him really having a great game either game.
Well, it's true that the combine didn't go very well for Holmgren, And I think he relents the fact that in some ways he got roped into playing in those rookie challenges games because it took attention away from focusing on some of the skills challenges. But all those things, management should still be looking at the tapes. They should be looking at how they performed before these rookie challenges. Maybe his nerves getting to, I don't know.
And maybe it's the fact that there are so many guards left that it's making it difficult. But I think I see Livingston heading to the stage now.
For the number 34 pick of the 2019 FBA Draft, the Texas Lone Stars have selected Ciro Rosales, a center forward ocelot from New York Carnivore Predator University. Congratulations to Ciro on being the number 35 pick of the 2019 FBA Draft. I'll return for the next pick. The Alaska Arctics have confirmed their selection. Thank you.
Well, there's the center I was expecting earlier at 30, but now we do find ourselves with only 3 centers left on the board, with Jericho, Salva, Demi, Spidenik, and actually only 2 centers left on the board. Sorry, Damon, Maley. There are 3. I am going to
I
go
can't.
insane. I see C and I see a G next to the name. I need to get my highlighter out and start highlighting these pages.
Stop looking at names. Look at the players in the audience behind you.
Oh my lord, no. But not a bad pick. Not a bad pick in the sense that they did need a center after releasing Adi Nereus earlier today. I still think because of their guard depth, that's the only reason why they didn't go guard. They still have their rookie from last year, Dennis Summers. They still have Marcus Knight, and they have Aragon Fisher. That's a 3-man camp. There would be very little playing time if they had drafted a guard here. And I don't know if you guys have anything to add before we hop on over to Alaska, who's on the clock now.
Yeah, I think. Oh, go ahead.
Head Marcus.
All right. Well, I will say though, I do feel like that even though you are right about the guard depth that they have in Texas, considering how the Aragon Fisher is getting older and he's on his last year, Marcus Knight, you could probably see the same thing. Even though he has been the heart and soul for this team for a while, I do think that possibly going for a guard would have been a good decision for them depth wise, especially if they want to find possibly shooting up for the future. And I think James Caliber could have been that. But Ciro Rosales, not a bad pick at all. It does kind of soften the cushion a little bit when it comes to their issues at the big first 5.
Yeah, and jumping on over to Alaska now, a team that arguably could be in the market for a shooting guard given the recent retirement of Cliff Matthews. I know you haven't really had a lot of opportunity to talk about that, how much of an impact that really has on a team, Marcus. And I think your ears are a little closer to the ground with the Arctics than most reporters, but
Yeah, but they did bring in a player who could fill that spot in Harmony Akayu with the whole sibling story being a really big thing now, given the second generation of family coming into to play for this Alaska team. But I will say that I would say guard depth, I don't think they have to worry about it as much. I think they could possibly go for a big for here. As we see the big for slots dwindling and dwindling as this draft goes on. So I won't be surprised if they decide to be like, you know what, let's go ahead and go for Damon Niel or possibly Jericho Salva.
I could definitely see that. Do you see maybe, obviously since they picked Okayu, I don't think they're going to go after her, but when do you see a player like Lauren Dunphy coming off the board? We saw her sister drafted starting to get close to 10 picks ago. Do you think she's starting to feel a little bit of a pressure now?
Absolutely.
I would say a little bit. I mean, considering that she is an overall shooter, but I think really with the fact that she's not really that great on the defensive end could probably be why a lot of teams are steering away from her a little bit. But I will say that I do see her possibly getting picked at some point in this draft, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I mean the other option could be she goes undrafted, then LVG decides to sign her just for the family drama, but I don't think we're going to see that. Back to Alaska's time starting to wind down. I'm sure they're going to have their pick in shortly. I do see them going with a guard personally, just because I feel like Devin Kellendine not going to be. I mean, obviously, a funny story considering that we saw in 2015 Alessandra Serra and Devin Kellendine switch teams essentially. I and Alaska's not made any kind of attempt to bring in him back, even though I think that would have been a quite an interesting turn. I do see them going with a guard here just because they were pretty much the team that ran that three guard setup for the longest time, good or bad. And
And I will say, if that's the case, Connie probably will get picked up here.
and it looks like they are ready to make their selection as I see Hugo Livingston heading to the stage.
For the number 36 pick of the 2019 FBA Draft, the Alaska Arctics have selected Advit Dakia, forward guard Bengal monitor from Gandhidham, India. Congratulations to you, Advit, on being the number 36 pick of the 2019 FBA Draft. I'll return for the next pick when the Winnipeg Voyagers have confirmed their selection. Thank you.
Confused.
That is what I would say. They're going for the same position that Okayu they selected earlier. Maybe this is a depth decision. Or maybe
I mean, there was a ton of need in Alaska, I think, to just fill out their depth with the rookies and worry about getting what they needed from free agency. But I don't think. I mean, we haven't even talked about Dokia till now. Now I'm having to shuffle through my notes.
Well, I mean, it's not a. There must be something they saw at the combine or in the film that made them want to go this route, especially considering, like I said, they already drafted a player that plays this general role of a swing for, and it might just be a depth consideration at this point. And we're definitely going to have to talk about the team that's on the clock if you know what you're going to talk about this player, or if you want to move on to Winnipeg.
Oh, we can move
go
on.
ahead.
As I say, because
Sure,
Winnipeg,
Winnipeg.
also another team, first pick in this entire draft. They traded their pick last year to the Las Vegas Wildcards, which netted them Xavier Cross this year. Thoughts on what Winnipeg might do here, considering they find themselves almost three-fourths the way through the draft, finally making their first selection?
Arts. I mean, I say it very simply, guards, because I think
That's all that's left.
Well, that's all that's left that is good, but they are one team that actually is looking to fill out their guard positions. I think they've had a couple years now where they've seen, Otley, for one, is up for contract. I don't know if he's going to get re-signed. We don't know that for sure yet. Margaret Walters retired recently, and they have several other guards that are with 1 year left. So they could find somebody here at this position who they could draft. Yeah, I mean, I feel like a broken record. We're still looking to see Cloverfield off the board. Top 24 players still available.
Yeah, I feel like at this point, she could be the steal of the night. Whoever's going to pick him up, because I don't imagine her going undrafted right now. I think that with to your point, I do believe that possibly going for a guard for the future would be essential for this team. And where else to really go outside than Cloverfield to be on that main passer?
Well, I want to go back to. I mean, they still have Timmins, obviously, on the team, but the funny situation with Winnipeg and their selections in the past. I mean, obviously, you remember Derek Kim being selected 11th. What is now 4 years ago, five drafts ago, ended up leaving the team after 2 years. A player that they thought was going to be the next star of the team leaving, and kind of since then they've struggled. They've bounced between starting Timids and other players they've selected like Mary O'Hara. What do they continue to be a broken record and select point guards that may not work out in the end, or do they finally go for a big free agent point guard?
That's definitely a take because they do have quite a bit of money this free agency to make somewhat of a big splash, albeit it'll only be one. But I think it really just depends on whether or not they want to bring O'Hara back onto the team since she is heading into free agency. I'd say right now, I feel like with the amount of players that we have left on the board, it's really hard to try to shuffle between like which team, which player you can compare. But while you might as well just go for like right now the shiniest toy in the toolbox right now, and that could be in Cloverfield.
Well, it makes me wonder if there's something with Connie that these teams have seen that make them very concerned about selecting a player. Like I don't know why it happens time to time that players slide, but uh, this seems like a very long slide in this case.
It is.
And
Definitely.
I think I see the commissioner getting ready to take the stage.
For the number 37 pick of the 2019 FBA Draft, the Winnipeg Voyagers have selected James Caliber, a guard German Shepherd from Oregon State. Congratulations to you, James, on being the number 37 pick of the 2019 FBA Draft. I will return once the Edmonton Totans have completed their selection. Thank you.
Well, 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 it is a guard, as you said, a player from the on the cusp, leaving Connie once again left alone on the board.
It's the sad story of this draft thus far. I don't think we expected to see this much of a slide. Of course, when you're talking about the top 24 players, uh, I think in previous years, we only have gone sometimes as low as number 28 before we see them all off the board. So this is pretty special.
It is. I mean, it definitely reminds me of the very first draft I was a part of. Marcus, I don't know if you remember George Barnes uh,
Oh yes.
slipping all the way from I think like 22 down to the 40s. Very late pick, grabbed off the board. Did not really uh, develop as they intended, and I think teams kind of knew the talent, the potential was not great there. So I wonder if maybe they're starting to feel like Connie may need to be more of a project than they're willing to take right now. But off from Winnipeg onto Edmonton, a team that we saw take a player we did not see at the combine, Lawrence St. Martin, injured, uh, unable to participate in most of the combine aside from the strength and intelligence trials. What do they do here? Do they go for another uh, big to kind of cover their bases in case that injury is worse than they expect?
They
Uh,
focus. Go ahead.
well, I was going to say that I can definitely see them go for that, but it really just depends on like how much study do we have when it comes to the bigs that we have left? Because all we really have is Damon and Jericho, and not really much else when it comes to the big department. If you want to consider, but I feel like at this point, possibly going for that cushion would be a good thing to have, especially with the fact that even though Sacred Warmanoan, we all agree that he is a little bit, he is pretty much an overrated player at this juncture. Being able to have more players to probably play under him and really develop under him as a player could really do wonders. And having a just one more big wouldn't hurt.
Willie?
I mean, there's not a whole lot of um, left, as we've been talking about. The pickings are slim, and they're really focused on filling out the benches. So for the most part, I could see where they do something like that.
Well, and this is a team that definitely has cap issues. We know I iterated last night, fix your cap space, and they're kind of at a point now where they just need to either fill the holes they got because they may not be able to get the free agents they want. Rookies have fixed contracts. You know what you're paying them. The free agent market, you really don't know what you're going to end up having to spend in order to bring a player in, and it is a very big gamble to leave a hole open in your roster. And I think the gamble they took last night on St. Martin needs to have some insurance with another player that they know is not injured, who could come in and play in case St. Martin's injury sidelines him for part of the season. Which is why I think we're going to see Dimi Sputanik coming off the board here. But I do not believe the commissioner is ready to make the selection, so we will continue on.
Teams are taking their time.
Yeah. I mean,
The expectation for me would be, again, I'm not going to say Cloverfield because that's a jinx at this point.
it is.
If we're looking at on the cusp guards, Carenzo and Holmgren are still very reliable players that could be selected here for a cheap price.
Yeah, I mean, 1.5 million, only $500,000 more than the league minimum. The problem is, though, I know with Edmonton they are trying to bring in a Alessandro Serra, who, if that's the plan, drafting a guard may end up being too much of a depth going on at this on this team, and then you end up with, I think it was the Bangor Tides years ago. I think they had 8 or 9 guards on the team, and it was ridiculous in terms of not being able to field a solid depth at all positions, and that's something you want to avoid.
I think you mentioned it earlier. They start running into cap issues at that point, and then you have no real you have real ability to maneuver any other contracts that you want to save. I think Jelenchka would be gone at that point.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously teams, there could be a trade in the works to open up cap space. They just got so much tied up with 2 players, and that's something we have seen some teams avoid in terms of their contract offers versus some teams like Seattle throwing the mountain of money at the Cougar, but they've tied themselves to him now for pretty much a 5-year deal, which is what we've seen hurt Edmonton, I would argue, considering that he is now being paid $21 million.
Ooh.
But
Yeah, I will say though, I think having like some sort of guard would probably make the most sense. Probably not a pure guard, but maybe a swingfer. I could definitely see Lauren Dunphy being picked here.
well, that would be an interesting selection considering they are in the same division, being able to play with against each other quite often. In fact, if that was the case, that would be a fun little matchup. Maybe see the 2 sisters. Hopefully not switch jerseys at halftime and go out for the other team. But I do believe the commissioner is ready with the envelope in hand.
For the number 38 pick of the 2019 FBA Draft, the Edmonton Totems have selected Connie Cloverfield, a guard rabbit from Underwood College. Congratulations to you, Connie, on being the number 38 pick of the 2019 FBA Draft. I'll return once the Texas Lone Stars have confirmed their selection. Thank you.
Yay! It finally worked. You didn't say Connie Cloverfield needed to be picked and she got selected. It's just like Falchem.
Wow.
Perennial jinx.
So for what we need to do now is just not mention another player's name and just take a break, lay back, relax, and we'll stop jinxing on the cusp players. And
I'm sure the Cloverfield clan would be very thankful for that at this point.
Well,
yeah, I will say when it comes to Cloverfield, it's a shame that we get to see her drop this far into the draft, but I will say that this could be one of those things where you can use as motivation as well, knowing that you're able to be seen as one of the top 24 players coming into this pool, and a lot of teams not really thinking of you being that. It can be a little bit disheartening, but I think that we can probably trade that from being something to be disappointing to really say, hey, I'm here to prove a point. And Connie can do that here.
Yeah, and we will actually move on now to the Texas Lone Stars, a team we've talked a lot about. Didn't get to see them in the first round, but this is their 3rd selection in the second round. making up for their lack of a first-round pick with a lot of opportunities to find those hidden gems. Who do they strike gold on here?
Boy. Well, I was expecting a guard at pick number 35. They went with Ciro Rosales, which was still a great pick. Don't get me wrong. I don't think we discussed Rosales' particular skill sets a whole lot, but I gotta say this is another opportunity to get a valuable guard to fill out the depth space at Texas. At this stage in the draft, it's their last pick. Spirit. And from here on out, I don't see where, unless they really want to, Jericho Salva or Damon Miele, they would be doing anything other than drafting a guard here.
Yeah, I mean there are still, like I said, Troy, Ronick, Ford player still on the board, but it kind of has to be a guard. And I think they will lean into the fact that there are still two on the cusp players. Remember, players who were considered by the league to be close to being top 24, but only just missing. And grabbing an on the cusp player at 39 is nothing to sneeze at, honestly. So I could see them definitely going with Corenzo or Holgren, uh, just like you said, to build up that depth, if not in preparation for Aragon Fisher or Dennis Summers to not return next season, which I would imagine one of the two would not.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you on that one. I think really, if it just depends on like what kind of team they really want to make up going forward. Apparently, with Aragon Fisher, the big worry is the fact that how much left does he really have in the tank, and I really would say that he doesn't have as much as compared to Dennis. He has a lot of years left in the tank, considering he's only been in the league for 1 year right now. Um, but we'll have to wait and see what they will have to do in that regard. I do see them going for a guard, but possibly going for a more offensive heavy guard. So we could see Barry Hoggard. He is listed as a point guard, but he doesn't have the stereotypical point guard tendencies in passing the ball. So maybe they can probably use his shooting abilities to help up the shooting coming off the bench.
Yes, well, I think I see the commissioner getting ready as the time is winding down, envelope in hand, heading up to the stage now.
For the 39th pick of the 2019 FBA Draft, the Texas Lone Stars have selected Lauren Dunphy, the guard forward Yellow Mongoose from Winchester University. Congratulations to you, Lauren, on being the 39th pick for the 2019 FBA Draft. They'll return after the San Jose Thrust have confirmed their selection. Thank you.
Well, went with one of the last swingers on the board. Uh, Interesting selection considering Texas has been a team that for a long time has built a lot of depth at the forward position, but they've struggled to really develop them much. Thinking back to uh, Andy Seckford, Kitaro, players like that they, or even Lucas Berger Kane. Players that they selected for the forward guard position that don't really develop, it seems like, as much as some of the other players around them.
Yeah, but I think maybe some of that could be attributed to coaching or management decisions from the past.
True.
And I'm looking at Texas as a fresh start here this year. With drafting Heitkamp and Rosales, they went with somebody who could shoot. That's Lauren Dunphy for sure. Second sister of Lisa, and of course now both Dunphys off the board officially. I like this pick personally.
Yeah, I think the pick is a pretty decent pick. I don't think it's as much of an offensive power as the person I mentioned before, James, not James Caliver.
Barry.
Yeah, Larry Berry.
No, Barry.
But
Barry. I am losing my mind. Barry Hoggard, not Barry Berry.
Yeah, Barry.
Or
Yeah,
Halle Berry. Halle Berry is not here. I'm sorry.
but yeah, like Barry Hargard is not as offensively sound, but she does shoot the three very well. Spreading and knowing this DNA, spreading the ball is really really key. when it comes to this game nowadays. So I can't really say this is a bad pick. I think this is a really decent pick.
Well, we don't have Andy here. We'll surely get his opinion on the San Jose Thrust picking here. What do you think, Willie, in terms of where they're going to go with their third selection in the draft?
Are you talking about the Thrust now?
Yes, the Thrust.
Okay, so the San Jose Thrust have kind of needed to find a point guard and a point forward. They selected Caldwell as the 25th pick, point guard, backup that they can use occasionally. For the remaining forwards on this draft board, which really we're only talking about Renick and Nunuk at this point to fill in that role. There's also Luke Cullen, who's more of a swing forward than a pure forward, but there aren't really any pure forwards left other than Renick. So, for what they're going to do here, I think if they did end up picking one of the remaining guards, it wouldn't be the biggest travesty in the world. But if I had to put any money on anything, this is what they would end up doing at this point, either picking Renick or Cullen.
I could definitely agree in that regard, getting one of the few forward-playing players off the board while they can. I think the fact that they grabbed the center earlier, we talked about at 25, maybe grabbing another one of the centers just in case, kind of a trying to cultivate two players at once, see how that goes with Barnaby Jazz leaving, try and maybe pick up the backup of the future here. So I definitely think they'll probably go with Sputnik in this case, just because right now Falcam is the future, but they already need to be considering their backup of the future as well at the same time. And they might as well get the most bang for their buck with what they have left with Jazz in terms of being able to learn from him. Because at least while these players are cheap.
I kind of like that as like a catchphrase. Falcom is the future.
Well, I was going to say the nickname is finally Falcam just because they finally got picked off the
Oh
board.
yeah, we got that one too. I think you need to trademark some of these.
I don't think Falcam would appreciate the first one.
You know what? I'll get you and Runica together after the draft's over. Discuss a little bit.
I don't think I want to get beat up. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Maybe Andy Peltz when he comes back in.
Yes,
we'll have...
Andy can. I can FaceTime. I'll FaceTime.
He's going to use some of those in his broadcasts, I'm sure.
Certainly, and that's San Jose is going to be an interesting team going forward, especially if they can manage to keep Sarah. That's kind of the big question with Mike Rising on his last year of his rookie contract. What will happen going into next season in terms of their cap situation? Definitely Jazz leaving will open them up to being able to afford to keep Mike Rising, but they're having to fight for DeWitt and Sarah this offseason, so they might find themselves in a bit of a pickle going forward in terms of the cap space.
I see them kind of forward thinking a little bit, fighting for Rising, of course, son of Lewis Rising. Really had a great rookie year. Cultivate that.
Mike Rising arguably, had Terry not been put on such a team that was struggling so much, Mike Rising would have been probably the rookie of the year, considering the numbers he put up on a team that was actually good. I mean, yes, Albany made the playoffs, but by the skin of their teeth. In a division that had, over half the division not have a winning record?
Yep.
So it was Mike Rising definitely rising to the top of the team, especially with Jazz retiring next season. Might be the face of the franchise going forward should he decide to remain and should they decide to pursue him. But
go ahead.
No, I was going to go ahead. I'm just rambling at this point.
Well, I'll wait for the commissioner to come out. Just try to fit this in quickly. I think we're starting to get to the stage 2 of the draft where we're just looking for the best available players to look into cultivating and see if we pick a gem out of the rough. A little bit. I think at number 40, we still see I think too, you have to look specifically into the details, some of the stuff that we can't know, that only GMs know about their players, what skills they have, what they don't have, and see if any of these players particularly fit into the puzzle that they have set across the board. They're taking into account potential trade or free agent signings. So it gets to be really complex at this stage.
Yeah, and
It might not matter all that much.
I'll definitely touch on that, but I think I see Commissioner finally being handed an envelope to head up to the stage.
For the number 40 pick of the 2019 FBA Draft, the San Jose Thrust have selected Barry Hoggard, a point guard wild boar from Anthro Academy of Pittsburgh. Congratulations to Barry on being the number 40 pick for 2019 FBA Draft. I'll return for the next pick when the Montana Howlers have confirmed their selection. Thank you.
So they did go point guard, or at least guard, in this situation, which makes some sense. And with Montana on the clock, I will touch on a little bit, I guess, what you were talking about. At this point, I mean, it's very easy for us when we have a top 24 list in front of us to look at it and go, yes, this is a player that really should be being selected. But at this point, so many of these players, it's not that they're not talented, it's just that they have not shown enough to really catch the eyes of the league. I mean, we talked about earlier players that have gone undrafted that have become big stars in the league. Lance Wildfire, Marcus Knight, to name two. So any of these players could very well be the next Marcus Knight, Lance Wildfire. It's just we haven't, and the teams may not have yet seen the talent. So at this point, it really is difficult for even us to look at them and go, yeah, this is who they should select when you have 5 or 6 guards left on the board who kind of all look similar except for their little quirks in terms of their play styles. But moving on to Montana, a team that I don't think needs a guard, considering they have Brandon Nue and Christopher still locked up. Marcus, do you think we see one of the very few centers come off the board here?
Honestly, I do think that that could be a possibility for this team in Montana because as we have right now, they don't really have a lot going from them depth wise in the center position outside of Regan St. Croix and I believe Barnaby Donbruch is selected in the first round. So I think really just trying to find a way to see if they could continue stacking up on that. I know that with the case that we only have like really only we still have only 3 players left that can play in that role as a big fur at this current moment. But I will say that I feel like going for that one of the 3, Melee, Sputnik, and Salvo could be the case.
Yeah, and thanks actually for reminding me of the fact that they did draft a big fur last night, Barnaby Dunbroch. I think actually that they are going to go Troy Ronick, the only player left on the board that can play forward, both small forward and power forward. I think that might be the route they're going to go. Obviously, the team itself has pretty good forward depth in the sense that they still have LaShawn Grandin, and they have a swing fur in Lowenthal who can stretch the floor. But outside of those two, they do need some work at the forward position. They definitely have their rookie from last year, Matthias Locke, also able to play forward. So I wouldn't be shocked if they decided to go that route just to kind of shore up the depth there. I think that they're not looking for a starter of the group. I think Barnaby is the only starter from the class that they really had in mind for Montana. As we wait for the pick to come in, not a lot left to go. We're at the 41st pick overall. Slowly running down the line of players left available. And I do see the commissioner actually pick being handed over to him now.
For the number 41 pick of the 2019 FBA Draft, Montana Howlers have selected Luke Cullen, a guard forward American Civet from Sacramento Valley State University. Congratulations to you, Luke, on being in the number 41 pick of the 2019 FBA Draft. I'll return once the Santa Ana Spectrums have confirmed their selection. Thank you.
Well, Wally. A pick here that I wasn't expecting, going for a forward guard. Any insight in what Montana might be thinking here?
There's a little bit of a depth decision that needs to be made from the Howers' perspective regarding the center role and whether or not they want to develop St. Croix into that position, the free agency, and fill that. And there are some rumors that they've already started doing so. So I think with this particular signing, they're looking to the other side of the board and potentially just looking to fill in depth, at least see if some of these rookies will skill sets. Interestingly enough, Cullen has kind of this guard forward that he can play in some stages that Montana might have looked at and said, "Yeah, let's give him a try."
Yeah, well, I mean, he was the last of his swing for brethren on the board. Now we're left with nothing but guards or forward centers. So we find ourselves in a situation where he was the last, and obviously best on the board with them being the last swing for available, that could kind of fill that intermediate role that the Howlers may have been looking for. But moving on to SAS, last night
Anna.
selected Ronan London, a point guard. Do you think that they will continue the trend with another guard here, or maybe go for one of the few centers left on the board?
I think they could probably go big at this point. Maybe not necessarily a center because they do have quite a few on the team already that are on their rookie contracts. But I wouldn't be surprised if they decide to really go big here just for the worry of Sebastian maybe not returning because they haven't been able to throw in a contract as of yet. We have to really be wait to be seen, but he's already going for a pretty high pricing from the rumors that we hear from Montana actually going for him as well. So I think really just trying to have a little bit of a safety net going on could probably go big here.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting.
I think there are a lot of point and shooting guards. Sorry to talk over you. There are just a few that I think Santa Ana can look into at this point. They haven't already kind of addressed. I think they'll be fine at the center position. I don't think they necessarily need that big, especially somebody who would really only be filling a backup big role right now. Grow into it. I think they're pretty much looking for who they can see come in, maybe really provide some good defense. So maybe they use that as a reason to draft a big, or they have somebody who comes in to give them a little bit of passing sprees for somebody who they consider one of their high point shooters.
Yeah, and I think I see the commissioner heading to the stage now.
For the number 42 pick of the 2019 FBA Draft, the Santa Ana Spectrums have chosen Troy Ronick, a forward orange tabby cat from Sinky Tech University. Congratulations to you, Troy, on being the 42 pick for the 2019 FBA Draft. I will return once the Bullocks of Vidu have confirmed their selection. Thank you.
Well, they went forward, but this is not a tiny forward. It's 7 foot. Basically, very limited to the power forward position at that size, unless they go really big at the small forward position. Definitely feels like
Cat
a
is long.
feels like a potential backup for Sebastian, or in case they move on.
I don't know what the fate of Kosciuszko will be. Honestly, for the Spectrums to make sure they have at least one player in there who could maybe be the next Kosciuszko a few years down the line. I think Rennick is a great pick. I know I talked a lot about finding somebody who would maybe just fill in like a passer or shooter role in the backup. They obviously saw something, though, that they couldn't pass up in Rennick being one of the few, if not the last power forwards left on the board.
Yeah, not a bad decision, honestly, given the time starting to run down on them. I mean, the three have remained on the board, and we're starting to run out of picks in terms of uh, options where these players might land. I can imagine a couple players at home starting to feel a little concerned regarding where they might end up here because
Absolutely.
there's what 6 picks left and a little bit more than that on the board.
Yeah, and we still have two on the cusp players that haven't really been picked as of yet either. So they're probably shocked that there's that they have not been selected either.
There's, Corenzo, a very valuable and potentially front five, I would say, in some cases, guard with great speed. And then we have the other one who is James Caliber. Sorry, not James Caliber, but Owen Holmgren, a while back, who I thought would have gone, honestly, by now. But apparently the Combine really hurt his chances. And for what it's worth, I still think at this stage could pick up somebody that, like Holmgren, would be able to
Yeah, and I mean, obviously BLV, I think here, with the fact that they did trade away their Reinhardt, and they did pick up West Penrod to kind of fill that hole. We kind of see that as a good thing in the sense that maybe they do want to go. I mean, Sterling, they've also made an offer for apparently regarding.
There's a lot of center and forward
questions
deals already happening from free agency. So really, guard is bet here, and there's plenty to choose from. It's just who.
Yeah, I mean, it's not what I would call a enviable position, considering they have a few options, a few things that could go wrong. All it takes is Sterling not wanting to come back and being a problem in that regard. God, I'm having some difficulties on my end.
Yeah, we don't know it for sure. Bengtsing being kind of a surprise in that, well, as far as I can tell, based on what I know, opting to renegotiate. And that's never the kind of word you want to hear as a manager. That means money problem that the player wants to be resolved before they'll come back and play for you. And so you have to set all your kind of other matters aside and say, okay. And then if Sterling says, you know what, I don't like what you've put on the table, I'm walking, then we have, I guess, a scenario. But I don't see 3 being the solution to that.
And I actually see the.
So I think they're going to look somewhere else.
And I think I see actually the commissioner hitting the stage right now, not with a pick in hand though. We'll see what he has to say.
Oh.
We have an announcement to make. Our very first trade for the duration of the draft. The Biloxi Voodoo have traded their 43rd pick to the Baltimore Spirits for $1.5 million, approved by the league. So we will be seeing a pick from Baltimore here very shortly. Thank you.
Well. It took till the 43rd pick to see a trade happen. It finally did, though.
Yeah, pretty pretty lackluster trade for all the trade lovers out there, to be honest with you. Essentially, we get to see Baltimore's it's essentially just buying the pick uh, from the team. Which honestly, I can't really blame Biloxi too much. They want to have as much money as they can to be able to bring back Sterling. I think that's really has been the number one thing that they want to get done before he actually goes away to another team, because there has been a team, I believe the Alphas has set an offer out on him already, so they're trying to make sure to get as much um, open cap space as possible to be able to make room for him.
Yeah, it does make sense in the sense that they are generating cap in any way. I think I don't know how if they've really felt the Malone trade was what they really wanted, but it's what they got in the end. So maybe they just need a little bit more cap space just as a insurance to make sure that they could get Sterling the contract he is demanding. But I do think I see the pick is in. Commissioner heading to the stage.
For the number 43 pick of the 2019 FBA Draft, the Baltimore Spirits have selected Lohi Corenzo, point guard Peregrine Falcon from Havian University of Hawaii at Manoa. Congratulations to Alohi for being the number 43 pick of the 2019 FBA Draft. They'll return for the next pick when the Hawaii Kahunas have confirmed their selection. Thank you.
Ooh, surprising here. I mean, it just mentioned obviously being from Hawaii. I think Hawaii might have to re-go to their boards here.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a funny moment here in that Hawaii is the next team to be picking at number 44, and Baltimore has swept the last Hawaiian that I'm aware of.
Yeah, and we know Hawaii does like to pick their hometown uh, players. Obviously, they selected one 2 years ago, but
I
it
think that at the end of the day, I feel like that this is an on the cusp player, so it's someone that we that a lot of that a lot of scouts have been very high on when it comes to Alohi Corenzo. But even though it could be a little bit of a slight against Hawaii, they could have been looking at this player and being like, hey, maybe we can actually like bring him in, continue really embracing the spirit of Hawaii with this player. But obviously that can't be the case now with him getting picked here.
Yep, and looking at Hawaii now, players that are left on the board, interesting setup. The two siblings, Nolan and Naoma King, both still on the board. Players, siblings, see if one goes, will both go. And I think we are going to be switching it up. I know, Willie, you've been on for a while now. See if you want to give your last thoughts with this pick before you head off for the night.
Uh, just a generally valuable pick. I think, again, for Baltimore, it's their only pick of this draft. And now, as we turn to Hawaii, they'll be looking to fill just depth in their bench and hopefully FA a little bit, free agency.
That is a big point, actually. I forgot that they had no picks coming into this draft, but then came back in just to grab arguably a player that had slid quite far. You would have expected them to go in the 30s, but made it all the way to 43 before being selected. So,
Hey,
like I said, I am not surprised that they made the move. They pulled the trigger on that, given the situation they found themselves in.
so again, this has been a great pleasure being here. And as we wait for the Hawaii Kahuna's pick to come in, the expectation I would have here is that they just go for the best available player left on the board. And for me, is Holmgren. But I could also see them going with Fitch Loomis. We haven't talked about him a whole lot, but he has overall a very good built well for being only 5'9". A standard shooting guard size is much taller than that. But I think Loomis has the skills necessary to make key shots later in the game when Hawaii might be looking to fight for a second go at the finals.
Yeah, and we'll see as I see the commissioner heading to the stage now with the pick.
For the number 44 pick of the 2019 FBA Draft, the Hawaii Kunas have selected Nolan King, a guard orange-bellied Trojan from El Alado College. Congratulations to you, Nolan, on being the number 44 pick of the 2019 FBA Draft. I'll return for the next pick when the Tennessee Moonshiners have confirmed their selection. Thank you.
Woo. Finally, one of the King siblings off the board. But I would like to send you off. Thank you so much for coming in. We are going to bring back Andy Peltz. Andy, you with us?
I didn't find coffee, but I found the free mimosas table.
Oh God, no, 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 no. Well, we just saw one of the King siblings taken off the board. One left to go. Do we, in the same vein, one cross sibling on the board still? Do we have a draft come to a close with both of them, both families left comforting one of their siblings, or do we see both of them go off the board here tonight before the night is done?
While it would be tragic to see some siblings left out in the cold, I I have a feeling that might be the case. We got there's only so many slots right now, and we only got a couple to fill at this point. We've got 4 slots and more than that on the board. Here's what I'm thinking. We've got who? The Tennessee Moonshiners up next, yeah?
Yes, the Tennessee Moonshiners are on the clock.
All right. Well, they've got contracts out for a while on most of their players. They just got a couple slots to fill. Uh, they've got let's see, one big fur on the board that they could take. I'm gonna just go with that just to see if they take that and use that as leverage.
Well, the fact that they do, there are 2 or 3 bigs still left. Damon, Sputnik, and Salva. 2 players.
Oh,
Any of the, I mean, there's 3 of them left. There's 4 picks still to go. So I think any of the teams that are left are probably going to feel comfortable that at least they will have an opportunity to get one of them. It's just a question of which they get if they are in fact intending to get one. But I do think they will go big just because of the renegotiating for Darius Cole they did earlier this year.
oh yeah, you're absolutely right. I saw those C's as G's. The
It's
font is a bit.
it's been going on all night like that for me. Trust me, the pain I share it. I think there's none left, and then I keep finding them like in the woods hiding, as if they're afraid to
Right.
be selected by a team.
Oh, I don't think the teams are afraid. It's just a matter of what's going on in their heads. You know what I mean?
Yep, and I believe we have the Tennessee Moonshiners pick in as I see the commissioner heading to the stage.
For the number 45 pick of the 2019 FBA Draft, the Tennessee Moonshiners have selected Damon Miele, a center honey badger from Mustelid University of Michigan. Congratulations to you, Damon, on being the 45th pick in the 2019 FBA Draft. I will return for the next pick when the Arizona Whips have confirmed their selection. Thank you.
Oh well, there goes the big. The Oh my lord, down to 2 now with only 3 picks to go. Will we see a board left of only guards at the end?
Well, it's man, these mimosas are really good.
Oh my god,
Uh,
don't make me send you back off.
sorry. I'll focus here. Okay, so we got one off of the board for the big furs. You know what? Let's see. The whips are up, and they've got guards or centers, right? Or guards or no guards. They've got
They picked
oh
two
yeah.
guards earlier in the draft, Evan Cross and Tino Hazari. And
Mm-hmm.
in their two first picks, they did kind of go for one of everything, in the sense that they got a forward center in Ikizi and a forward guard in Karamo. So they kind of have one of everything at this point, not to be
Uh,
too
Yeah.
specific.
yeah.
Well, I think at the end of the day, I really feel like which one of these players do you perceive to have could make the most impact when it comes to depth? Because for this Arizona team, they're finally embracing the means of youth and really trying to see if they can develop into something. Right now, it's really kind of hard to say, but I'm gonna see if they can go for one of the siblings. Either Cross or King could be picked up here.
Well, they did draft their Evan Cross, so it would make sense that maybe they want to bring in his sister Lana Cross. But again, a lot left on the board. A couple of these players not going to get drafted, but will have an opportunity to be pursued by teams in restricted free agency. I don't know if you have anyone in mind, Andy. If they go off the board, do you think any of the San Jose Thrust players might or team might draft pick one of these players up in unrestricted free agency?
Oh, absolutely. Because there's only so much you can shell out in contracts before you're left with the scraps and trying to fill out a roster. Uh, if one of the siblings gets left behind, I'm gonna say that they might seriously consider one of those just to well, you know what happens when you have a sibling on one team and a sibling on the other. You get that little competition going. You might have something magical happen.
Yeah, or you might have one retire and go to broadcasting. But
Oh wow! Okay.
enough picking on Marcus. We only have 3 picks left, and I think we have the third to last pick in.
For the number 46 pick of the 2019 FBA Draft, the Arizona Whips have selected Dimi Spodniak, a forward center wolf dog from Canis Lupus Central Community College. Congratulations to you, Dimi, on being the number 46 pick of the 2019 FBA Draft. I'll return once the Bangor Tides have confirmed their selection. Thank you.
Well, there goes one of the last centers. Now we're down to one left standing. Or sorry, wait, oops.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yes.
you're right.
you're right. So Jericho Salva is the last on the board amongst a sea of guards.
Well, I mean, if there's anything, they're going to stand out compared to the rest sitting out there on the floor because they're going to be head and shoulders above the rest left on the board. But Bangor, what do? You got Ash Van Zant sliding from 2 to 6. What do you do now here with the second to last pick in the draft?
Second to last pick of the draft. Well, with the fact that Bangor has had one of their large players go off to Seattle, uh, I might say that Jericho might get passed over for someone like Holmgren, just so that Bangor can start to patch together something that it will maybe look like Delmont in the lineup.
Maybe. It's got a lot of options with the question of is Lance going to return or is he not. I could imagine them definitely going with one of the guards that are left. Holgram definitely seems like a good option in the sense that on the cusp player had some level of talent that made him stand out from the rest of the guards left. It's just a question of last 2 picks. Will he go? Will he not? I don't know if
So
Marcus has anything to input on that front.
Well, I think one of the big reasons of the worry of why Holmgren hasn't really been selected here selected as of yet is because the fact that he doesn't really have a lot going for him as we see usually as a point guard because he shoots more so in the close and of course only knows how to dribble a little bit. But outside of that, there really aren't a lot of features that really kind of put him in as being the someone you can really get into in the future. I could be able to see him get picked because of his athleticism. He does have a lot of that, and he is essentially a very raw player. But at the end of the day, you're going to be looking at a player that could be one of those long term projects that you would have hoped that will become a role player at some point in the near future.
Well, I was gonna say at this point, I think most of the players left on the board you could consider as raw players in terms of their potential or in their talent. But I think I see the commissioner getting delivered the envelope. We will find out here in a moment with the 47th pick.
For the number 47 pick of the 2019 FBA Draft, the Bangor Tides have selected Oddfrid Holmgren, a guard brown squirrel from Esmark, Sweden. Congratulations to Oddfrid for being the 47 pick of the 2019 FBA Draft. I'll return shortly when the Dakota Bikers have confirmed the very last selection of the evening. Thank you.
Well, the final on the cusp player goes off the board here right before the cusp of the draft comes to an end. Um, Not a terrible surprise in the sense that they did end up going, especially to a team that just lost a guard.
Yeah, I would say that like at the end of the day, it's trying to find a way to continue having one of the best guard depth in the entire FBA. Is it's pretty much safe to say that Vanguard does have that depth wise. And of course, selecting another guard earlier. Ooh, excuse me. Selecting a guard earlier in Ashburn Zent in the last night in the first round, it would make sense to probably continue on that trend and really continue to build on possibly returning to be a championship once again.
Yes, and we move on now to the team with the last pick, Mr. or Mrs. Irrelevant. And the horrible name that we decided to give to the person last picked in the draft.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. I was wondering.
it's not something you want to wear with pride, but it's one of those things where you're like, hey, uh, at least you got picked. That's
it's
kind of how.
it's one of those things we've rarely had a player not picked at 48 that has really turned into a big thing. I mean, we've had undrafted players, but it's kind of like at this point, how much time are you really going to be given to develop? Especially since you are going to the team with usually the best record the prior year. It's kind of hard to find yourself stable on a team like that.
Right.
Yeah, and I will have to say though, this could be one of those things where the siblings Leanna Cross and Namia King is probably going to be looking at this and just kind of really clenching their worry about whether or not who's going to actually end up going undrafted as they see their other sibling get to play on with another team. We could see something happen here where we finally get to see one of them, but we're going, we're pretty much about guaranteed to see that storyline get played for a couple of these sibs.
Absolutely. And now, as far as Dakota is concerned, they picked up Dirk Canton as their 24 pick. So they've got a forward in the bank. Now we're looking at either a center or guard here. I'm willing to I'm willing to wager at this point that they might go with a center, because they've got Benjamin Derby up for grabs right now, and they might want to get a backup rookie to develop and serve as someone who might be able to fill in.
Yes, and with time expiring, I think I see the commissioner heading to stage now for the last pick in the 2019 FBA draft.
For the last pick of the 2019 FBA Draft. Why are you gritting me like that? No, what is I don't want this envelope. I want the one in your hand. Yes, no, I'm on to you. Give me the one in your hand. Take this one back. I said no shenanigans. Thank you. Sorry about that. For the number 48 pick of the 2019 FBA draft, the Dakota Bikers have selected Plato Nachos, a side dish entree plate. Hey!
I I think the commissioner just got a little angry about the prank that someone played on him.
Of course. Why every year this happens?
Oh
Every year,
my lord.
someone decides to slip one in. It looks like they double juked him this year.
Top 24 dishes ranked number one in overall deliciousness.
I'm
How
sh-
about
Oh my
that?
gosh.
I'm sure it's available at the bar, the buffet for all the players. But I believe I see the commissioner wrestling away the real envelope away from the intern that is surely fired after tonight. And maybe this time he'll actually read it before announcing.
Did you have to seal it? Really? Ugh. Terribly, terribly sorry. For the actual 48th pick of the 2019 FBA draft, the Dakota Bikers have selected Jericho Salva, a center Golden Eagle from UFLA. Congratulations to you, Jericho, on being the last pick of the 2019 FBA draft. And congratulations to all of our draftees today and yesterday. We look forward to having you in the Furry Basketball Association and seeing what great things you will do for our league. And with that, it is my pleasure to say the 2019 FBA draft is now closed. Thank you all for attending, and please enjoy the buffet on your way out.
Yes, everyone, please enjoy the Plato nachos available on the buffet here tonight in Las Vegas. But last selection of the night, Jericho Salva. They did, I think you called it, that they would go with a center, at least for safety. A lot of their players on the team that have been their depth at that position are going into free agency this year, and not so sure if they will fight to retain them. Maybe they keep shuffling in young players like a Jericho. So I think you definitely nailed it on the head there with this selection. Any closing thoughts? We've watched 48 players' names get called, a couple not get called. What are your takeaways from the night, both of you? Let's start with Andy.
Well, with a smaller than usual draft class, only a couple did not get picked, and I'm sure that there are some teams out there that'll be interested in them in the restricted free agency market toward the end of the the toward the beginning of the season. Uh, Other than that, if not, we've got two siblings who are going to be watching from the sidelines as their other halves are taking the center stage on the court.
Yeah, Marcus, your thoughts?
Well, I think that there are definitely quite a few winners in today's draft throughout. I still considered Arizona a really huge win. While they still have a very long way to go from where they were at last year, you can't. That's when we thought that it couldn't get any worse. It got worse for them, but now I think it's safe to say that they have gotten a few steps up. I will say though, it is a little bit of a disappointment to see Connie Clover drop so far into the pool, all the way down into Edmonton with a 38th pick. But I will say that this could definitely be something that she could use for inspiration to possibly be like, all right, if you guys don't think of me as much as a quality player, then I can prove you wrong this year and really make a name for herself in the totems.
Yes, and in my opinion, what I'm going to keep an eye on is the lack of trades in the draft has my interest piqued. I have a feeling in the next couple days we might see some of these players end up on different teams that we were not expecting, and nor were they expecting after being drafted. I think there's some scheming going on in the background. I have a gut feeling it's been too quiet this year, so everyone keep their eyes
Absolutely.
out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to say this that those mimosas on the free mimosa table are suspiciously strong today.
Oh no. The good thing you have to be wearing a wristband. I think I'm gonna take yours off to keep you from going back there.
No.
Well, that wraps up the second round of the 2019 FBA draft. That is all, folks. We will see you again for the opening game of the 2019-2020 FBA season, where I'm gonna give you a little hint. I know who the Howlers are playing. Do you want to know?
I'm very interested.
Well, do you want to take a guess before I spoil this little surprise?
Well, considering how this history really goes, I would assume that they will be going up against a team that they have played in the playoffs of last year. So, um, I'm
Whoa.
probably going. Oh, you want to go ahead and say
No, dude, I'm waiting.
it? Well, I have to go ahead and look one more time when it comes to the postseason to make sure that I get everything correct. But I believe that they could be going up against maybe San Jose.
Hmm. Andy, do you want to put your bet in?
While I would love to be in on the commentary team for Halloween. I I want to say that they might go after either the champs, Bangor, or maybe Seattle, given that they just spent a whole bunch of money.
Well, neither of you are correct. It is going
Oh,
to be the 50th anniversary of the Halloween invite, and we're going to throw it back to the first matchup, which was against the Plymouth Taproots. We will be live in Montana as the Plymouth Taproots take on the Montana Howlers October 31st. Make sure everyone is there. I will be there. Hopefully, Marcus, you will be there. And we will see all you lovely furs live then in a little over a month. Have a great night.